Bills Mafia on today's Air Raid Hour pregame. We will be breaking down what we expect to see from the Bills this evening as they take on the Baltimore Ravens. Injury updates, key matchups, and our pregame superlatives are all coming up. But first,
Welcome to the Air Raid Hour, a Cover One Network podcast. Here are your hosts, Judge Mathis and Tilt Money.
welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to the Air Raid Hour. My name is Steve Mathis. You can find me on X at the Bills Guys. Joined as always by my co-host Dave Tilton. You can find him on X at Tilt Money. This is the Air Raid Hour. This pregame show is brought to you by Cover One Sports Network and Picasso's Pizza. And Dave, I'll tell you what, watching Shane Buechele cook, that was fun. Watching college football week 0, week 1, week 2, that was fun. Watching the Chargers beat the Chiefs, that was fun. But football season is officially back at about 8:20 this evening when Carrie Underwood is done singing the Sunday Night Football intro song. Josh Allen will be back on the football field, baby. We get to watch the Buffalo Bills play real football today.
It's been a long time coming. I think this offseason went quicker than it's felt in prior years. But the last like 2 to 3 weeks,
you speak for yourself.
No. But the last 2 to 3 weeks, I feel like it really slowed down. And like I was like, oh, we'll be here. We'll be here before we know it. And then like the last 2-3 weeks were like just grinding to a halt, like just not moving. And finally, it's here. I did like that they had the Friday night game. That kind of helped a little bit because in the years past, you'd had that Thursday night game, and then you'd wait around until the Sunday game. But obviously, we have to wait around all day today as well for the Bills playing tonight. But we're back. We're officially back. And the Bills take the field against the team that they last beat. So we'll see.
All right, we're going to start with a new segment here on the pregame show, and it's called The Lead. And these are some of the biggest storylines heading into the game. After we're done with these talking points, we'll get into a further breakdown of the injuries and the weather, what to expect from the Bills offense versus the Ravens defense, what to expect from the Bills the Bills defense versus the Ravens offense, and of course, everyone's favorite, our pregame superlatives. But first, let's start with the lead. And I think the number one story, at least for me and at least for the sickos in Bills Mafia, right? Maybe not for the general public, but for the sickos in Bills Mafia, heading into this game is what is CB2 going to look like? No Dane Jackson call-up yesterday. Trey White is doubtful to play with his groin injury. Obviously, we know Maxwell Hairston is on injured reserve. So the options come down to third-year man Jamarcus Ingram or rookie sixth-round pick Dorian Strong. Two questions for you, Dave. Number one, who do you want to start at CB2 today? And who do you think starts at CB2 today?
Well, who do I want to start? I probably would want Dorian Strong to start, especially the way they've been talking about him in these press conferences. They really, they've been talking him up. And by all accounts, through the beat reporters and all accounts during training camp, preseason, he's had a really good camp and practices. You may see Jamarcus Ingram out there first, right? But I don't think this is a situation where it's like, oh, you have this guy, like it's like a Trey White who's like been there, done that, been a really good vet around the league, and you're just going to give him the start because that's the guy you trust. Like the Bills, I think, trust Dorian Strong. And so I will say, like, I want Dorian Strong to start at CB2. That's my want. I think there's a more than 50% chance that he is the starter, but at the end of the day, it wouldn't shock me if Ingram is out there first, though I lean Dorian Strong is going to be the guy that's out there.
Yeah, Justin Tippecanoe comes in and says, Benford was a 6th-round pick. It only makes sense we find another diamond in the rough again. And here's the thing. I have no sort of like feeling in my body that Dorian Strong is going to be, or expectation, right? That Dorian Strong is going to be the next Christian Benford. But we talked about Dorian Strong at length in the pregame, in the pre-draft process. This is a guy with 44 career starts in the ACC, and people laughed at me when I said that. It was the ACC. Still 44 starts on a Power 5 team, right? He showed a willingness at the line of scrimmage in run defense. He showed that he can be a man corner. He showed that he has zone instincts. Like, he has the complete package. Is he the best athlete in the world? No, he's not. That's probably why he dropped to the 6th round. But this is a guy who I think could be a baseline starter in the National Football League at some point, given all of his attributes. And then you compare that to Jamarcus Ingram. And I love Jamarcus Ingram. I went to the University of Buffalo. I have a Naaman Roosevelt nameplate over my shoulder here, right? But let's be real. When Jamarcus Ingram was at the University of Buffalo, he was a good athlete, but he wasn't really that good of a football player. There's a reason why he was a UDFA. There's a reason why the Buffalo Bills were probably one of the only teams, or one of the few teams to come a calling. They were local, but the Buffalo Bills lucked out. Jamarcus Ingram took advantage of the situation. His versatility, being able to play special teams, being able to play dime backer, being able to play nickel, like, he made himself versatile. He made himself useful, and he has stuck around for years and gotten a chance to develop in the NFL. So you have these two guys. And I think if it comes down to it, the Bills are going to go with who they think is best, right? If it's a tie, it's going to go to Dorian Strong because he's probably got more upside. If it's within the margin of error, it's going to go to Dorian Strong because he has more upside, and Jamarcus Ingram gives you more versatility as a backup. But if Jamarcus Ingram, in what we see in practice, is head and shoulders above Dorian Strong, Jamarcus Ingram will get that start tonight. The Bills are not going to put their defense at risk if they think Dorian Strong is the inferior player. But based on those two resumes that I just laid out, I think it's pretty clear cut. Again, we don't get to see practice that, and it's not difficult to assume that Dorian Strong is a superior option here.
Yeah, I would agree. And also, look, it gives him reps too early in the season for a situation where maybe Trey White's out for more than just this week. Hairston comes back later, and his condition, he has to get his conditioning back up to speed. You're gonna want a guy like Strong to have reps come later in the season anyway, just because this cornerback room is a mash unit right now, and it was a room that had like a lot of potential. I think we had pretty high hopes for it after, bringing Trey White back, drafting Hairston, obviously drafting Dorian Strong. And we had felt like this is a really good room under Christian Benford with these injuries. To me, it makes sense, especially early in the season, like, give this guy reps while you can. Especially because, like, yes, it's Sunday Night Football. Yes, it's the Ravens. But at the end of the day, it's week 1 in the NFL season for the Bills and for their long-term goals. Getting the reps now it's kind of like good because it's a pressure situation from the fact that it's prime time, it's week 1, but it's not as critical as it would be maybe later in the season if he was just getting thrust into action. So that's why I think it's a good opportunity for the Bills to give him reps.
On the other side, the Baltimore Ravens are dealing with some key injuries as well. And this is the second, I think, major storyline of this football game. Patrick Richard and Isaiah Likely are out for the Ravens. No practice squad call up for the 295-pound fullback Lucas Scott. So there really is going to be no sort of substitution for Richard. They did call a tight end up from the practice squad, but it looks like Charlie Kohler now moves up to TE2. He's not the pass catcher that Isaiah Likely is. When you look at this depth chart of the Baltimore Ravens, the addition of DeAndre Hopkins tonight, could we see the Baltimore Ravens use more 11 personnel? It was a 30% usage rate in 2024. Could that be higher tonight? And what do you think the overall impact is for that on the Ravens offense?
Yeah, it could be. And I think the Ravens are probably looking at it as in the Bills have some injuries in the secondary, right? That maybe 11 personnel would open some things up for them, maybe spread the Bills defense out a bit. They're still going to run it with Derrick Henry. And if you remember last year, Justice Hill had one of his best games of the season as well against the Bills. So I think, even though Ricard's out, Richard, I mean, I don't want to get yelled at by that one guy in the comments by saying but I don't know if it's Ricard or Richard.
It's Richard.
It's Richard. Okay. they're going to use Justice Hill as well. And don't forget, too, they have Keaton Mitchell healthy as well. So I think you're going to see, I don't think it's really going to see a huge deviation from what the Ravens want to do, like with their run game and with Justice Hill out of the backfield. But they did bring in DeAndre Hopkins, and the Bills are beat up in the secondary. So it actually may also benefit their run game a bit to spread the Bills defense out a bit as well, knowing that the Bills defense is a bit undersized anyway, and still take advantage with Derrick Henry and Lamar running the ball. So I don't think in this particular situation, like, it's that big of an issue for the Ravens to have Rashard out. I think likely being out is kind of like a bummer for them, but they have guys that can make up for it, especially against the Bills. And against other teams, maybe would be a little bit more critical. But I think against the Bills, they match up pretty well anyway with their running backs out of the backfield and with the Bills being beat up. So it's important, but I don't think it's as important as a lot of people are making it out to be. Like, it's some huge downgrade for Baltimore.
The third, I think, major talking point heading into this game, the third and final before we get into sort of the nitty-gritty and the nuts and bolts of things, is the fact that Josh Allen has played 0 preseason snaps. And on the other side of the ball, Lamar Jackson has played 0 preseason snaps. These are 2 high-profile offenses. The Ravens averaged a league-leading 31 points per game last season. They were the number 1 EPA offense. We all know how good the Buffalo Bills were offensively last year. I don't need to rattle off a whole bunch of stats. Everyone here knows exactly how good they were. The over-under for this game is 50.5 points, which is the most of any game this weekend. Are you smashing that over? Or could this game be sloppier than people think because these 2 quarterbacks have not had any preseason reps?
I don't know if I'm smashing the over, but it wouldn't surprise me. I don't think that either of these two not having the reps is going to have such a huge impact. I think Lamar is going to get back into things quickly. I think the bigger question is the Bills' third down defense again, which could also make things a little bit easier for Lamar to get back into kind of like the swing of things. They're still going to run it with Derrick Henry to kind of keep themselves on schedule. I think it's more of a disadvantage for the Bills that their offense kind of has had slow starts in the past. So, and they've had slow week 1s in the past. So I would say like it's a fairly equal that they both didn't have the reps, but I think with the way that the Bills offense relies on Josh Allen to kind of get things going in their slow starts out of the gates in recent years, I think it's going to be a bit of a slower start for them than it will be for Baltimore.
All right, before we get into the nuts and bolts of this game, we are first going to hear a quick word from our sponsor.
Picasso's Pizza. Beat your team to the most flavorful pizza on game day. Picasso's. We are Buffalo Pizza. Shipping both local and nationwide. Order online today at Picasso'sPizza.net.
That's right, people. If you are heading to the game today, make sure to get to Picasso'sPizza.net. Pick up your pie on the way to the tailgate. If you're sitting at home in Buffalo watching it, order your pie online, Picasso'sPizza.net. Pick it up before game time. And if you're an out-of-towner like us, it's a little too late now, but don't worry. You can be prepared next week by going to Picasso'sPizza.net, and they deliver nationwide as well. It's fresh. It's not frozen. They send you a literal fresh pie, and you have to freeze it right away or you have to cook it right away. So be prepared for that. And Dave and I can tell you from experience, it's just as good as getting it straight from the restaurant. So head on over to Picasso'sPizza.net to get your Buffalo pizza today. All right, let's get into it. We've already touched on some of the injuries, but we're going to touch on some more here. But first, the weather, which is not really a talking point today. There might be some precipitation in the hours preceding the game. People might be a little wet at the tailgate today, but the expectation is little to no rain by kickoff. Temperatures in the upper 50s, little winds. Weather's not going to be a factor, so I don't really need to talk about that. Injuries, we've already discussed. Isaiah Likely out, Patrick Rashard out for the Baltimore Ravens. They have elevated tight end Zaire Mitchell-Payton from the practice squad. No fullback being called up. You look at the Bills, they have Tyler Bass, who is out, going on injured reserve. You have Trey White, who is doubtful, which means he is not going to play today, hasn't practiced all week. The Bills practice squad elevations were Matt Prater, who will be kicking today, and Kendrick Green. Just looking at the overall injury landscape, a couple of things. Number one, don't be surprised if Cedric Van Pran Granger is inactive tonight as he ramps back up from his calf injury. That might be why they called Kendrick Green up from the practice squad. He has the ability to play center. And number two, new kicker tonight who's only been with the Bills for a week. That's a pretty big story. But last season, Matt Prater was 6 for 6 on the year in Arizona with a long of 57, 12 for 12 on extra points. This guy has been historically one of the best kickers in the league over the past, decade? He is 41 years old, so you do have that concern, but he, even into age 41, has had one of the bigger legs in the league. Not a bad plan B for the Buffalo Bills here at kicker.
No, it's interesting, the kicker situation really for both teams. Ravens have rookie Tyler Loop now after Justin Tucker is no longer with the team and for so long. And the Bills with Matt Prater, who's going to be he's 41 years old. I don't remember exactly.
I caught a lot of flack on social media yesterday for calling him 800. There was a couple of guys in their 40s who did not appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but Prater has been a really good kicker in the league for a long time now. He spent a lot of years in Detroit and Arizona kicking sort of indoors, but he also had those years in Denver kicking outdoors, obviously in the higher elevation. So, shouldn't be an issue. The question probably will be like, what kind of leg does he have left? In his heyday, he had a pretty big leg. But what kind of leg does he have?
57-yarder last year. 57-yarder.
57-yarder. But again, with the Bills, they're probably not going to be in a situation in tonight's game where they're going to be hopefully relying on a 57-yard field goal for any kind of meaningful way. It's either going to be going for it.
You wait till you get to my game predictions, baby.
You're either going to be going for it or I mean, I don't know. So I'm not really like that concerned about, going from Tyler Bass to Matt Prater.
I'm not sweating at all. If it was like Caden Davis, I'd be sweating bullets right now, but it's not. It's Matt Prater. So.
It's Matt Prater. So I'm good with it.
Good job. Good job, Brandon, being there. Unless he screws up tonight, then bad job, Brandon being, and we'll be having a conversation about that on Monday. All right, let's shift our focus now to the Buffalo Bills offense versus the Baltimore Ravens defense. Looking at it from from a depth chart standpoint, the Ravens, they got Travis Jones and Justin Madubuike. That's a very formidable sort of big man front. Obviously, they run that 34 alignment. So we'll talk about the edge rushers in a moment. But the depth there isn't what it has been in years past in terms of their big, bulky bodies. You got Adafi Owe, Kyle Van Noy, and Mike Green, the rookie, who looked pretty good in the preseason as their primary pass rushers. You got Roquan Smith and Trenton Simpson, who will be going sideline to sideline as their off-ball linebackers. You have a pretty formidable secondary. Obviously, we don't know exactly what Jair Alexander is right now. I guess we'll find out tonight. But Nate Wiggins, Jair Alexander, Marlon Humphrey at corner, Kyle Hampton, Malachi Starks at safety. This is a formidable Baltimore Ravens defense. Maybe not as deep as they have been in years past, but at least on paper, their starters look very, 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 very good. What are your thoughts on this initial thoughts on this Baltimore Ravens defense on paper?
Yeah, and you go back to their defense a year ago, and it's really kind of the same players, right? You've got Malachi Starks now paired with Kyle Hamilton, who we loved in the pre-draft process, and Mike Green added into the mix on the defensive front, but largely the same defense from a year ago, which was very good. As we progress through this season in the pregame show, we'll obviously be kind of going back to some of the DVOA numbers that I shared last year during the pregame. But since it's the first game of the year, we don't really have much to go on there other than looking at last year's numbers where they were sixth in defensive DVOA for the regular season. And they bring back essentially the same starting lineup outside of Malachi Starks now starting for them at one of the safety spots. So I think it's a very good Ravens defense. I think, they had two guys in double-digit sacks a year ago, Van Noy and Ofe, excuse me. I'm going to get yelled at again by that guy. So to me, like this is a defense that you do need to respect. Those big boys in the middle. it could present you some problems. We saw the Bills struggle with that a bit in the regular season game. They did struggle and get slow at it. They were slow out of the gates in the playoff game as well. So the Bills will have their hands full tonight on a defense that's very disciplined, returns basically their entire starting unit from a year ago, and was also, from a DVOA standpoint, ranked one of the better defenses in the league a year ago. Some things of note, again, from last year's DVOA. It's a new season. I get that. But you start to think about, like, where can the Bills maybe attack? 21st against the tight end, Baltimore was, from a DVOA standpoint last year. Dalton Kincaid, a lot's been made out of him and what his connection will be with Josh Allen this year. So that's something you may want to look at from a matchup standpoint. 13th against running backs out of the backfield, generally pretty good against wide receivers, other than the number one wide receiver, which they were 29th in DVOA against wide receiver ones a year ago. So who is that going to be for the Bills tonight? Yeah. Is it going to be Keon Coleman? Is it going to be Khalil Shakir? We'll see. That DVOA statistic, wide receiver one is against the boundary wide receiver one. That's how they do it. So a lot to respect for this Ravens defense. But also the Bills, there are some areas where I think you can see them take advantage. So as Brendan P says here.
Yeah. Josh Allen needs to take what he's given. If he does that, it'll be a long day for the Baltimore Ravens defense. And I agree with that to an extent. I mean, you mentioned DVOA 13th against running backs out of the backfield, 21st, I believe you said, against tight ends. Taking those passes to Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox over the middle, dumping the ball off to James Cook. Those are things that can keep the chain moving and that can keep the Bills at an advantage. So Josh Allen definitely needs to look at those things today. But the one thing I will say, and you mentioned they were, what were they against number one wide receivers, which is in this case in DVOA instances, boundary guy? 29th, right? I think what you're going to see from the Baltimore Ravens in this game is you are going to see them single high most of the game. And they're going to force Josh Allen to throw the ball to the boundary, to his boundary targets. Keon Coleman and Josh Palmer are going to play a huge role in this game. And honestly, Josh Allen can dink and dunk all he wants. We can run the ball well and establish the run. But at the end of the day, the deciding factor in this game may come down to, can Keon Coleman and Josh Palmer make plays like they were brought here to do on the boundary? Because Baltimore will definitely be creating their defense and formulating their defense to get Josh Allen to throw it to those two boundaries.
Yeah, and this is where all that hype from training camp and practice with the connection between Josh Allen and Keon Coleman, like, this is going to be a situation where those skills and those types of plays, those back shoulder plays on the sideline, like, those types of plays are going to be really important for the Bills to hit in this game. So for Coleman, he's going to have to be ready on some of those contested catches, sideline catches, back shoulder type things. And Palmer is going to have to do what he does, and that's kind of shake his guy on the other boundary to kind of get separation, which we know was one of the things that has been his calling card in the NFL and obviously throughout practices. So you're right. Those two guys are going to be hugely important. That's not typically been one of the strengths of this Bills offense in the past. So we'll see if this is something that, with the addition of Josh Palmer and with the alleged improvement of Keon Coleman and that chemistry with him and Josh Allen in training camp and practice, actually sticks out tonight from an execution on the field standpoint, because they will need it. I agree with you. They will need it.
A couple of notes here from the Bills offensive standpoint. It's the first game. There was preseason a little bit for the ones, but not for Josh Allen. I think that we need to make sure, and I'm sure Joe Brady knows this, and I'm sure Joe Brady understands this. We need to run the ball well in this game, and we need to not go away from the run if it doesn't go well early. We need to do our best in this game to create 2nd and 7s, 3rd and 3s, to stay in that positive sort of down and distance, and to move the chains and try to control time of possession. Josh Allen hasn't thrown a ball in a game since we played the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. I don't think, as good as Josh Allen is, you want to see him chucking the ball 35 plus times tonight. I think establishing the run and sticking with the run and having a balance today is going to be super important.
Yeah, and I mean it's a simple thing, but it also keeps, your time of possession in good favor. We know in that first game in the regular season last year, the Bills got absolutely smoked from a time of possession standpoint. The Ravens were fourth against the run in DVOA a year ago, so it is going to be maybe difficult, but you do need to somewhat stick with it, and also use Josh Allen as part of that as well in the running game, right? So, look, you just gave James Cook that big extension. It's week 1. Like you're trying to kind of maybe set the tone early in this season, and show what you're going to be able to do on the run game, which was very good a year ago, but was not good. And you struggled from a time of possession standpoint against the Ravens in the regular season game a year ago. And even in the playoff game, it started out pretty bad, and then it ended up evening out a bit as the game went on. But yeah, that would be something that would be nice to see, because the Bills are going to want to try to keep Lamar off the field as much as they can.
Just Tippecanoe comes in and says, Hulk, smash that like button. I appreciate that. Spin 0481 comes in and says, I'm pretty sure Josh Allen has thrown passes during their last practice this week. Of course he has, right? But like we saw the slow start they got off to last year against the Arizona Cardinals. We saw sort of that Jets game 2 years ago. The Bills have kind of, outside of that Rams game, gotten off to some sluggish starts in their openers the last, half decade or so. So I think there is some cause for concern, and having that balance, keeping Josh Allen stabilized, I think that's an important thing. And that's an important thing for any quarterback, really. Saw mention here, or you mentioned, Josh Allen and running the football, right? I think we're over the Josh Allen being told not to use his legs narrative, right? Like I think Sean McDermott has moved past that. I think with the influx of Joe Brady, the Buffalo Bills philosophically have moved past that. I think they understand it's important both to Josh Allen and his confidence, and sometimes, quite frankly, to this offense, that Josh Allen is able to utilize his legs as long as he does so in a wise manner. I mean, this is a guy who literally fractured his left hand week 1 last year running in the football in for a touchdown. So we're over that narrative and of being concerned that Josh Allen's not going to run tonight, right?
Yeah, I mean, sure, pick your spots and try to stay out of harm's way, but like it's year 8 for Josh Allen. Like, I don't know that you're like, he's going to do what he has to do to try to win this game. That's just who he is. And you can't really contain the beast. Like he's just what he is. As like, it's just one of those things that you just hope that he stays out of harm's way as much as he can. And Charles G says, let's not give up another week 1 special team TD. That would be nice. Yeah, that would be nice.
Couple of things the Bills could do to make their lives easier is get the ball into Khalil Shakir's hand. What are we thinking about his role for week 1? Because using Shakir in the screen game is a nice extension of the running game. Getting the ball into the hands of the running backs could be something to take some of the pressure off as well. But between those two things, getting the ball to the running backs, getting the ball to Shakir, I'm really interested to see how expansive the role for Shakir is coming off the injury week 1. Is he simply going to be how we used him last year? Or are we already off the bat going to see some of the things we saw earlier in training camp where he was getting down the field a little more as well?
I mean, I think the Bills need him for this game, right? He led the team with 7 targets in that playoff game against the Ravens, had that early, really crucial first down that down the middle of the field that the Bills needed in that game to kind of keep themselves in it, led the team with 6 catches in that play. Like he has to be a focal point, right? As far as like, we talk about Coleman and Palmer on the boundary needing to make those plays. Like that's going to be something that probably still won't necessarily be a huge volume of plays. I think Shakir and the tight ends and the running backs should still be probably the main focus, but he's going to have to be that kind of continuation of that, converting those third downs. Like the Ravens are going to have that with Zay Flowers, who we're going to talk about here in a second. The Bills need that from Khalil Shakir to keep them on schedule. And I think at this stage in Khalil Shakir's career, even though he, has kind of come back, he's kind of coming back from that injury. He's far enough along now in his career, and he's established himself enough in this offense to say, look, I'm ready to go. Like, you don't have to worry about me shaking any of the rust off. Like, I'm going to be ready to go, and you'll find me over the middle of the field, find me on some wide receiver screens where I can work yards after the catch and things of that nature. So I think that will be fine. And the chemistry between Allen and Shakir is obviously one of the best on the team. So I am not so worried about that. I think it's just a matter of like if the Bills kind of force the issue with him early in the game.
The Ravens, as you mentioned, not so great in the DVOA against tight ends. Third most yards allowed to tight ends in 2024 as well, just from a volume statistic standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Kincaid and Knox should be pretty heavily involved in this game. Wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of 12 personnel from the Buffalo Bills this afternoon. The emphasis, I think, for us as fans is going to be on Dalton Kincaid, and rightfully so. Josh Allen, the emphasis is going to be, I think, on Dalton Kincaid. Josh Allen has he's been around the media this week a lot, and he's had some conversations. He spoke at and I can't honestly remember who he spoke to for any of these interviews because there were so many, but he spoke at length about how he let Keon Coleman and Dalton Kincaid down at points last year. And I think there's a chip on Josh Allen's shoulder and a sense of responsibility to try to course correct with Dalton Kincaid and get him right. And he also mentioned Dawson Knox as somebody who he thinks is finally healthy for the first time in a long time, and a guy he's excited to have a big year. So maybe the Buffalo Bills come out today and just have a 12 personnel party, and guys like Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid really help this offense go.
I mean, it would be nice. Again, we talked about Keon Coleman being hyped up and talked up during training camp and practice. The same kind of being said about Dalton Kincaid, and it's all talk until you do it on the field, right? I mean, we've seen, not necessarily in the Josh Allen era, but in years past during the drought and things, we've seen guys talked up during training camp and in the summer only for it to just not materialize on the field. So you'd like to see that this be one of those things where it does materialize. They, used the first round pick on him a couple of years ago, had the good rookie season. Obviously injuries hampered him a year ago. Is it a huge concern if he's a little bit slow out of the gate from a statistical standpoint? No, but I think if he looks healthy and he makes some important plays in this game, great. And even if that's split up a bit between him and Knox, like I'm okay with that. Knox has experience in big games. He's going to be someone that Josh Allen trusts as well. I mean, literally like the longest tenured receiving option on the team, he's been here longer than Shakir, right? So like he is the dude that's been on the team the longest that probably Josh Allen has the most history with. Not probably, he does. And so I think there is a special place in Josh Allen's heart and maybe on his radar from a target standpoint for Dawson Knox, and he can make an impact. And it's not just in the red zone either for Dawson Knox. He can make an impact really between the 20s as well. So it's nice to have those two guys. Can the Bills use those two guys in a way that takes advantage? You'd like to think so if that DVOA kind of trend continues from a year ago for the Ravens.
Riley O'Brien comes in and says, Knox, Hawes, and Anderson package. That would be something. And a couple people in the comment section earlier mentioned Alec Anderson and Jackson Hawes as well. So I want to apologize for not getting to this sooner. But I look at three players, right? Three wild card maybe type of players in this football game. You have Reggie Gilliam, who shined last year in the run game as a blocker, especially late in the season. He really stepped up. You have Jackson Hawes, who Joe Brady called the best blocking tight end he's ever scouted coming out of college. And you have Alec Anderson, and the Buffalo Bills ran the sixth most 6-0 line sets of any team in the National Football League last year by a country mile. What do we see the most of this evening? Reggie Gilliam, Jackson Hawes, Alec Anderson.
Man, that's a good question. I think Reggie Gilliam. That's where I'm leaning. But I think Hawes will be close behind. I do. I think the Bills will want to try to establish some swagger with some power. Look, James Cook ran the ball 17 times in that playoff game a year ago, averaged 3.9 yards per carry. So I think and Reggie Gilliam had an impact in that game, by the way, too, in them running the ball. So I think like there was some moderate success there for James Cook running the ball with Reggie Gilliam kind of leading the way. And again, like the Ravens' fourth in DVOA defense against the run last year, but like Trenton Simpson, not the biggest guy. If you want to try to like make some space and create some space on the interior, like against guys like Matabuke. Like, you're going to need a guy like Reggie Gilliam to do that. So it's going to be interesting, right? It's going to depend on whether the Bills want to kind of attack the ground game up the middle or if they want to attack it on the edges. So I'm leaning Reggie Gilliam, but it wouldn't surprise me if Hawes was either right there or very close behind.
No bones about it, comes in and says, "Why are you guys so down on Dalton Kincaid? Dude set franchise records as a rookie." I don't think I'm down on Dalton Kincaid. I projected him last week to lead the Buffalo Bills in receiving this year. So go check the receipts last week. I'm pretty high on Dalton Kincaid this year, and I think he's going to have a really good season. But the Bills do have two solid tight ends, and the Bills have to carve out a role for Dawson Knox as well. So it's not so much being pessimistic about Dalton Kincaid. It's about understanding that in this offense, everybody eats. Josh Allen has a long relationship and rapport with Dawson Knox, and they're going to try to carve out some type of role for him in this offense, especially with the amount of money that they are paying him. All right, now on to the Buffalo Bills defense versus the he was talking about the chat. All right. Apologies. I felt attacked there for a second, No Bones. So I felt the need to defend myself. But I'm just kidding. Love you, No Bones. You're always in the comment section. Appreciate you. Hopefully no hard feelings there. But looking at the Buffalo Bills defense versus the Ravens offense, we dug into Dorian Strong already, so we're not going to talk about that very much. We talked about the loss of Patrick Ricard, and Isaiah Likely and its impact on the top of the show. So it will be a little bit more of a brief conversation, I think, for the Buffalo Bills defensively in this game. But you look at the depth chart, right? It's Lamar Jackson at quarterback. It's Derrick Henry at running back. And then they have Justice Hill coming off the bench, and he scorched us last year. And Keaton Mitchell is healthy, and he's the type of guy who could probably scorch you if a guy like Justice Hill scorched you. Some good change of pace back there. I like Ali, their four-string running back. Whether we see him or not, I doubt it. But they got three really good receivers in Hopkins, Bateman, and Flowers. They got Mark Andrews and Charlie Kolar at tight end. From left to right, they have a bunch of air raid hour favorites on this offensive line. Guys we talked about mightily in the pre-draft process. They got Ronnie Staley, who we didn't talk about because he went high in the draft, but Andrew Voorhees at left guard stepping in. Guy we loved in the pre-draft process. We wanted the Bills to take a chance on a couple of years ago. Tyler Linderbaum at center, right? We were talking about him as a possible first-round pick a couple of years ago. Daniel Falele at right guard and Roger Rosengarten, my guy, at tackle 2 years ago in the pre-draft process. So that's before we knew. That's before we knew Spencer Brown was going to step up. That was the year of do we need a right tackle? So pretty good offensive line for the Ravens left to right. Mixing in some DVOA from last year, some general thoughts. What do you think initially before we get into maybe some of the nuts and bolts about this Baltimore Ravens offense the Buffalo Bills will be facing against?
I mean, number one DVOA offense last season, right? I mean, they are, and again, returning essentially the same starting unit, except, adding DeAndre Hopkins, who's kind of in the twilight of his career, but like in spots can potentially be, an option for them. Number one in the pass, number one in the rush on DVOA last year. So, yeah, this is a team that, the Bills kind of struggled with again in the regular season. They kind of did what they needed to do from a turnover standpoint in the playoff game, but otherwise did struggle a bit to kind of contain that Ravens offense in the playoff game, especially the tight ends. And we saw Likely do damage. And thankfully he's not playing in today's game. But, Derrick Henry obviously has a track record against the Bills. Lamar has his own sort of mixed track record against the Bills. But again, this is a team that, with the Bills fighting some injuries in the secondary, with the Bills having some rookies playing now on the defensive front with Sanders and Walker, the question will always start sort of with, can the Bills contain the Ravens run game enough to force them in third and long situations, and being their best chance having Lamar try to throw it to the boundary and not to the tight ends. Milano and Bernard will be huge in this game to kind of force that issue if the Bills can hold up on early downs. So to me, it's all about the Bills holding up as much as possible on early downs in this game and trying to somewhat rectify the third down issues they had a year ago, because from the way this thing lines up, it's not a great matchup, and it really has never been a great matchup for the Bills defense against the Ravens offense.
So many things to keep an eye out for tonight, specific to the Buffalo Bills defense. Gregory Rousseau, is he going to live up to that contract extension? Ed Oliver, is he going to rebound this year and get back to having that juice that we've seen in years past? Daquan Jones, does he rebound and become a solid contributor in the middle of that defensive line once again, an impactful contributor? The youth and inexperience of the depth at IDO in TJ Sanders and Deion Walker. Joey Bosa, kind of a wild card, but we know how good he has been historically. Matt Milano, kind of a wild card because of injuries, but we know how well he has played historically. You have your question at CB2. You have your question at safety in Cole Bishop. Can Taylor Rapp go an entire game without injuring himself or one of his teammates? There are a ton of different things that you can look for in this football game as sort of a mystery about what this Buffalo Bills defense is going to look like. Let's zero in on one in particular here. No Jordan Phillips call-up, which honestly really surprised me. Are you worried about TJ Sanders and Deion Walker being thrown into the fire without that safety net of a fifth defensive tackle, like, say, a veteran Jordan Phillips there to sort of bail them out at times when needed?
If it was a situation where, like, it was a run defending defensive tackle, like, maybe. But I actually am kind of like okay with this, because I think, like, I'd rather these guys somewhat get thrown into the fire again early in the season. Same kind of reasoning that I mentioned for Dorian Strong getting the reps. Like, I'd rather these guys get a ton of reps against maybe the best offense they're going to see all season, and just see how the chips fall with those two guys. I do think, obviously, it is nice that they're still going to have Daquan and Ed kind of as the first wave. Fifth defensive tackle, yeah, probably would have been something I would have been interested to see for this game. But at the end of the day, like, they're going to trust those two guys. And as Roy says, more surprised they didn't let Logan True defending one tech. And I guess the question comes down to a numbers game, right? Who do they end up wanting to have active for this game? So
I think you might see I think you might see all five edges, which kind of surprised me. I thought Landon Jackson would be an early season inactive.
Well, and that's a good thought process, but maybe, like, with the fact that they really want to focus on containing the edges, Landon Jackson being lengthy, Landon Jackson potentially having a role in sort of setting the edge in the run game against Lamar and some of those RPOs and those read options that the Ravens run. Like, maybe it did make more sense for them to have a fifth edge, knowing that, like, there's only so much that a fifth defensive tackle might end up even being effective against a Derrick Henry running the ball. So I can kind of understand it. And I'm not super mad about the fact that Jordan Phillips wasn't elevated, because I think, like, getting these guys reps early in the season, and again, in the same lines as Dorian Strong, is going to be important for them down the road.
I think what could have been a pretty big talking point of this pregame show has kind of been neutered a little bit, and that is the use of Dorian Williams and the base defense versus Taron Johnson and the nickel defense. But with Patrick Richard out and Isaiah Likely out, I think it'll be hard pressed for the Buffalo Bills, with the exception of maybe some short yardage situations and some goal line situations, to take Taron Johnson off the field. What are your thoughts on that?
It does concern me a little bit, especially if the Ravens do run more 11 personnel, especially if there's a repeat of what happened in the regular season game a year ago, where Justice Hill, like, kind of torched Dorian Williams a couple times out of the backfield. So I kind of understand it a bit, right? Because from a coverage standpoint, he's not going to be an asset, right? So I think it will come down to how well the Bills defend the run early in the game. If they're really struggling against the run, then maybe you see Dorian Williams come in a bit more on some early downs. But I think generally the Bills are going to try to stay with their bread and butter and keep Taron Johnson on the field.
Speaking of bread and butter, Lamar Jackson's bread and butter, obviously utilizing his legs, throwing the ball over the middle of the field to those tight ends. Historically, you mentioned struggled to the boundaries, even though he's gotten better at that. But guys like Eric Turner and Warren Sharp have kind of dug into the analytics this week and looked at it, and there might be one area that could be Lamar Jackson's kryptonite this evening and over the course of the season, because it was historically last season. Lamar Jackson, when facing a five-man pressure, five-man blitz, and man coverage, is 23rd, or was 23rd, excuse me, last year in EPA per dropback. Didn't we just bring in a couple of coaches, a nickel coach with a lot of man-to-man defense experience, Ryan Nielsen, a defensive guru, to inject some maybe 5- and 6-man blitzes, things that we saw over the course of training camp and we saw over the course of the preseason? I wonder, could 5-man pressures and man-to-man defense be a bigger part of this game plan for the Buffalo Bills tonight than it has been historically?
I'd like to see it, right? I'd like to see it, especially like when you've got sort of assets that you can use to aid in that game plan, with a Milano, with a Bernard rushing the passer in spots, with Taron Johnson maybe coming off the nickel edge, blitzing a bit, maybe Cole Bishop even a little bit, sort of as a part of that 5-man rush package. Like, I think the Bills have, and this is one area where I think, like, we have talked about the Bills and the injuries in the secondary and sort of the question marks about how that secondary is going to hold up in the back end. You, on the flip side, you do have some strength here when it comes to 5-man pressure in the people, the players, the personnel that you want to potentially send on some of these 5-man pressures, right? I think a lot of those guys, Bishop, Bernard, Milano, Taron Johnson, those are 4 guys who could really excel as that 5th man rushing, then in the back end, having that sort of man-to-man coverage in the back end. I think this is something that the Bills should consider, right? I think they should consider it, and I think that it will depend sort of how effective, again, they can be on early downs, if they can even get into these situations where they feel that they can bring that type of pressure. And if the Ravens beat that pressure early in the game, the Bills might have to go away from it, right? If guys like Dorian Strong, for example, can't hold up on the back end, and Lamar's able to get some of these balls off, let's say to the boundary or even over the middle, tight end Mark Andrews could be a factor there. Can, whether it's Bernard or Milano or Rapp, hold up against a guy like Mark Andrews, then yes, the Bills may continue that type of that type of approach.
You know what the biggest loss in this game for the Bills is from a personnel standpoint? I don't think it's Trey White. I don't think it's Maxwell Hairston. I don't think it's Tyler Bass. You know who the Buffalo Bills could really use in this game? Michael Hoyt.
Yeah, they could.
I think that is going to end up being like there. I think we could look back at this game, because I think the Buffalo Bills, it's going to take them a while. Like, I don't think the Buffalo Bills defense that you see tonight, obviously with the questions at CB2 and with Cole Bishop developing and with no Michael Hoyt, I don't think the defense you see tonight is going to be by any means indicative of what the Buffalo Bills defense is going to look like for the entire season, unless it's really good. Unless it's really good, then it's got to be indicative of
I agree with that. I agree with that.
I think you're going to see some mistakes. I think you're going to see some miscalculations. I think you're going to see some errors. I think you're going to see some plays that, like, oh, we almost made that play, but we couldn't quite. And I think a large part of that's going to be like, dude, how would this game have looked if Michael Hoyt was playing? Being that 5th rusher, being that guy, like, we saw him just take over some of these preseason, but we saw him take over some of these preseason games, and we just know from an athletic standpoint what he brings to the defense and allows the things he allows them to do. So
he could also kind of be that 5th defensive tackle, if you will, if need to be, right?
He can be defensive tackle. He can be a defensive end. He can be a linebacker. Like, the dude can literally do it all. So, to me, when he gets activated from his suspension and he gets ramped back up, that's going to be a real wild card in the second half of the season that I think could really change the Buffalo Bills defense for the better. And that's an underrated missing piece tonight, I think, is Michael Hoyt. All right, let's transition now from the Buffalo Bills defense to everybody's favorite, That's right, ladies and gentlemen, back for another season. We have our pre-game superlatives. For those of you who may be new to the Air Raid Hour, every pregame show, we go through a number of pregame superlatives. It's just a fun little way for us to have a conversation and to have some talking points, to make some predictions surrounding this Buffalo Bills versus Baltimore Ravens game. Now, in the past, we used to have some fun little movie clips and things that went along with all the different superlatives that we have. But thanks to YouTube restrictions and the NFL and the band Creed for copywriting us, we no longer have that luxury. But thanks to Dave, we still do have some wonderful graphics. So we're going to start this morning or this afternoon if you're watching on demand with our Take Me Higher player of the game. All right. As always, in the comment section, feel free to play this game along with us. And we're going to start with our Take Me Higher player of the game. This is a notable Buffalo Bills player, not named Josh Allen, that needs to have a big game, or we predict will have a big game in order for the Buffalo Bills to get over that hump and beat the Baltimore Ravens. So, Dave, let's start with you. Who is your Take Me Higher player of the game?
A lot of different ways we can go here. I am going to go. Yeah, I am going to go with the guy you pegged as a potential defensive player of the year candidate, and that is Terrell Bernard. I think Terrell Bernard from the linebacker position. I almost went with Milano here, but given that, Milano's like, he came back at the end of last year, obviously, but like I think that from an overall standpoint, captain of the defense, first game of the year, really tough offense. Gonna have to patrol the middle of the field, maybe be involved in some of those 5-man pressures we talked about. Terrell Bernard is going to have himself a day, not just in coverage, maybe in blitzing. Communication obviously is critical for this game as well from the Bills' defensive standpoint. And so to me, I think it's got to be Terrell Bernard. Obviously forced that big fumble a year ago against Andrews in the playoff game. And the Bills are going to need him also to play some good run defense as well today. So a lot's going to be asked of Terrell Bernard, but he's your defensive captain, your only defensive captain, as the Bills only have one captain on each side of the ball. So for me, I'm going with Bernard. He's going to have to take the Bills higher today.
Couple of superlatives coming in from the chat. We got Roy Collins saying his superlative is, holy shit, football's back. Yeah, I think I used that right. You sure did, Roy. You sure did. And we got Miguel Nova coming in saying Joey Bosa. Brendan P saying Groot has to take us higher. We got Spin0481 coming in saying Kincaid on offense, Milano on defense. Charles G says all the Bills edge players. Sky Stone says Joey Bosa. Excuse me, Sly Stone says Joey Bosa. And Carl Thoman coming in. Ty Johnson catch multiple balls and get some. Yeah, you might want to say that, Carl, for Wildcard. You might want to say that for Wildcard. But yeah, a lot of great choices here. The guy I'm going to choose, maybe this is a Wildcard player, maybe, but I'm gonna choose him anyway. I'm going Josh Palmer as my Take Me Higher player of the game. The Buffalo Bills brought him in to be a man separator, and I think they're going to need that on the boundary on offense this evening. Give me 3+ catches, 75+ yards, and a touchdown from Josh Palmer in his Buffalo Bills debut. And that'll move us on now to our wild card player of the game. All right, wild card player of the game. This is a surprise player, a non-star that steps up or will step, or we predict will step up or needs to step up, depending on how you want to frame it, right? For the Buffalo Bills to have success against the Baltimore Ravens today. Dave, I will start with you. Who is your Take Me Higher? Can you tell us the first pregame show of the year? Your wild card player of the game.
Wild card player of the game, big, big discussion point in the offseason. Matthew Smiley, the special teams, what's going on with the Bills in that front. Really good Ravens team. play or two here or there could be the difference. I'm going with Brandon Codrington as my wild card player of the game. And I see Chudley 716 also says Codrington. I think a big return, the new return rules, the play, the touchbacks going out to the 35 this year. Codrington going to have an opportunity, I think, to return some kicks, especially because I think the Ravens are going to score a little bit in this game. So he's going to have, I think, multiple opportunities to return some kicks today, maybe flip the field in the Bills' favor, give that offense a really short field, or even maybe take one all the way. It won't go that far, but I think Codrington could have a big impact today as a wild card player, especially, again, first week, you're going to see some of these new kickoff rules in effect.
I gotta give you a hard time for a second. Chudley 716. It's Chudley 716. Dave. Come on now. We gotta get the area code right. We gotta get the area code right. I know it's the first. I made my mistake. You made your mistake to start our. I did make my mistake. We're getting our errors out of the way early. No, there was no preseason for us either. Actually,
we're gonna get flamed in the comments, but okay.
Riley O'Brien comes in and says AJ Epinesa, Brendan P says Deion Walker, Miguel Nova says Cole Bishop. No bones about it says TJ Sanders. Paul, save your Mike Green for the respect you player of the game. But then Justin Tippecanoe comes in with a super chat. I always appreciate you. Justin Tippecanoe, he says, the wild card is my crockpot cheesy hamburger dip. What is everybody making today? Great show and go Bills. That is, that sounds delicious. I'm not going to lie to you. That sounds really good. I haven't really even thought about a pregame meal yet. I know we ordered, my dad's in town. We're going to watch the game together this weekend. And so we got in last night from the airport and we ordered probably good. If anyone lives in the Glendale, Peoria region of Arizona, Good China is the best Chinese that you will get in the West Valley. And there's some leftover orange chicken and orange beef, which is surprisingly way better than I thought it would be. It is the best Chinese food in the West Valley. There's some leftovers, so I'm probably gonna have some leftover Chinese. But Dave, how about you? Well, what are we eating?
Don't know yet. Too far away for me to think about it.
I haven't really thought about it. No bones about it says street corn dip. That sounds pretty good. Nothing like a good corn dip. So back to the wild card player of the game, and you had a guy that someone in the comment section had, and I have a guy that somebody in the comment section had. James Leclerc comes in and says Jackson Spencer Hawes, and I am going to agree with him. I'm going with Jackson Hawes. I think that over the course of this season, what you're going to see, and over the course of today, what you're going to see is the Bills phase out the 6 offensive linemen, and that 6 offensive lineman is going to be replaced by Jackson Hawes. And I think Jackson Hawes is going to help us establish the run today against a team that is historically pretty good at stopping the run. And I think the ability for the Buffalo Bills to run the football today, in large part due to guys like Jackson Hawes, is going to keep Josh Allen level-headed. It's going to keep this offense balanced after having no preseason reps. So I'm not predicting any catches for Jackson Hawes. I'm not predicting any yards or any touchdowns. He's just going to be absolutely oozing dog energy the entire game. And we're going to be talking about him tomorrow, not because of the box score, but just because of that absolute dog energy that he's going to ooze out for the entirety of this football game. All right. Up next, we have to say some nice things about our opponents here with our Respect You player of the game. All right, Dave, who is your Respect You player of the game?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Lamar Jackson gets the Josh Allen treatment here from a Respect You standpoint, right? Like we do the take me higher and we pretty much say, look, it can't be Josh Allen because it could be him. It's him every week. The same kind of for me on the Respect You side, like it's a given. It's Lamar Jackson. So let's go somewhere else. I'm going to say Mark Andrews. I think that Mark Andrews last year, obviously he had the drop on the 2-point conversion. The fumble obviously happened as well earlier in the game. I think there's going to be a little bit of chip on Mark Andrews' shoulder in this game. I think that the Bills may be slightly exposed over the middle of the field if they do decide to bring some 5-man pressures, which I think is going to be an interesting chess match that we talked about. I do think that there is also that narrative of like the slow start Mark Andrews had last year, and he eventually kind of came on towards the end of the year. So for me, he's been old reliable for Lamar Jackson for a number of years. And I think that he's going to have some salty taste in his mouth from what happened in that playoff game a year ago. So I would expect that Mark Andrews is going to come out with some pretty fiery energy in this game for that Ravens offense. And the Bills are going to need to be aware of him, especially if they kind of leave themselves a little bit, more exposed with some man coverage in the back end if they bring 5. So I'm going Mark Andrews as my respect you player.
Roy Collins comes in and says Justice Hill. He played well against us last year. Can't forget about Justice Hill. No bones about it. Says you got to respect Kyle Hamilton. Of course, you got to respect him, one of the best defensive players in football. And at the end of the day, I took a lot of flack last year because I just there's a lot. Some teams are just a lot of players you got to respect, and this is one of the teams. And I took a lot of flack last year for not picking just one guy. So I'm gonna stick to one guy this year. I'm gonna stick to one guy. I'm not gonna try to name out every single player I think is good on their football team because I'd be here for a while. They're a good football team. I'm going to go Marlon Humphrey. The dude is an absolute dog in the nickel for them. He gave Josh Allen absolute fits in the regular season last year. He's the one who's going to be responsible for covering Khalil, Shakir, and Dalton Kincaid, who a lot of people are prognosticating are going to be the Buffalo Bills' top 2 options this year, unless a guy like Keon Coleman really steps up. So to me, I'm going with Marlon Humphrey, and Charles G comes in and saves me here by throwing Derrick Henry in there. Can't forget King.
He's like him and Lamar are like 1-1B. Like we don't even need to mention them. Like we clearly need to respect those 2 guys.
we got a comment coming here from Torture Bills fan 85 says Judge gotta go to Long Wongs for wings and potato skins off 43rd and Indian School Road. I'm not gonna lie to you. I have heard really good things about Long Wong's wings, but I have not been there yet. So I will have to check that out. And Roy Collins comes in and said, I thought for sure Judge is going to pick the entire Ravens defense. No, I am sticking to one player this year. Yeah. Nice. Kyle Thompson comes in and says, Roquan Smith. See, the chat is saving me by listing all the other good players. All right. Last and not least, before we get to our pregame predictions, we got to throw a hot take in there, right? So here's our hot take this week. All right, it's time to have a fire sale. Dave, what is your hottest take for this week? And no one can hold us to these hot takes, right? Because we're just having a little bit of fun.
No one else gets held to them.
And everyone likes to say my takes are lukewarm, and that's because I'm afraid of somebody clipping this and putting it on the internet and being not that it's already not on the internet, but it's buried a nice hour, 2 minutes into the show. So it's just a judgment-free zone where we can just give our hottest takes without fear of retribution from the online mob. Okay, people, you got in the comment section, we got to agree to this. So Dave, with that being said, Brendan P comes in and says 5+ sacks for the Buffalo Bills defense today. Spin 0481 comes in and says his hot take is the Bills defense forces a punt after a 3rd and 18. Kyle Thompson,
the hottest thing I've ever heard right there.
Says Cole Bishop picks off Lamar and plays great tonight. Nice. What is your hot take of the game?
My hot take is Keon Coleman 2 touchdown receptions tonight. I think that it's not going to, I don't think it's going to be like a huge volume season for him necessarily. 75 targets, 80 targets, but I think the touchdowns are going to be where he really kind of shines for this offense this year. And he's going to need to kind of make several plays tonight. And when I say several for him, that's probably like in the 4 to 6 range, I would say. And I think he's going to have 2 touchdown catches tonight. I think that becomes a talking point that translates from practice training camp to the field tonight. The no real exposure on Hard Knocks, just a lot of very quiet optimism, I would say, from this Bills team around Keon Coleman. Not on the injury report. For the final injury report, we know there was a little bit of a scare for him early in the week with the groin injury, but I think 2 touchdown catches for Keon tonight.
Jessica Tennis comes in and says new 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1 plays this year. Nice. Charles G says Prater hits all his kicks, at least one from 50 plus. Here's a real spicy one from Steve Noble. He says Dorian Strong starts today, plays great, and never gives up the CP2 job.
I like it.
We gonna move Maxwell Harrison to free safety? Like, what are we gonna do? Matt Milano pick 6 says just the tip of canoe. Nick Steiner says 5 touchdown passes for Josh Allen plus a tush push. So a 6-tutty game, says Nick S. Man, I love that. Roy Collins says big man touchdown for Buffalo. James Sinclair says 2 interceptions and a fumble recovery for Buffalo. And then Spin coming in saying, if Judge throws out another freezing ice cold take for a hot take, he is getting roasted. So Spin, you got to let me know in the comment. You got to let me know in the comments whether this is hot enough for you. And Dave, my hot take is building off of your hot take because it involves Keon Coleman, but it is not solely about Keon Coleman here. So my hot take for the game, everyone expects the Buffalo Bills to zag. They expect guys like Khalil Shakir, guys like Dalton Kincaid, guys like James Cook to be the focal point of the offense. And I think they will be, especially over the course of the season. But I think you're going to see a lot of single high coverage from Baltimore. And I think the Buffalo Bills are going to zag. And I think they are going to attack the boundaries in this football game. And the 2 guys in the boundaries will be Keon Coleman and Josh Palmer, who will combine for 8+ catches, 150 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That's my prediction for those 2 guys on the boundary to combine for that. So Spin, let me know if that is spicy enough for you. Maybe not as spicy as LR Pro coming in and saying Deion Walker has 5 sacks, but I think it's close. Brendan P comes in and says, go Bills. Thanks for the show and the offseason content, guys. Always appreciate you, Brendan. Thank you guys so much in the comment section. We're not done yet, so that's a little premature thank you, but thank you to everyone in the comment section. And Spin says, I will give it to you this time, Judge. So thank you so much. Really appreciate. I think that might be out of pity. But I respect you.
You'll take it. You'll take it.
And at this point, I'll take it. Right. All right. So our final prediction of the game is going to be taking us back to the future score prediction. All right, Dave, take us back to the future. Paint a picture for us. What's the final score of this game, and what does it look like?
I think the Bills' offense kind of struggles a little bit slow out of the gate, but I think the defense keeps them in there early. I think Codrington, like I said, maybe has a big return early and kind of levels things out for the Bills. Playing at home, obviously, a huge advantage for the Bills as well. This is a really good Ravens team they're going against, and the Bills obviously are a really good team as well. Week 1 is always kind of weird, right? It's always kind of like a little bit of the unknown. You don't really know. You expect both teams are going to be good. You expect both teams will play well, but you just don't exactly know. So I think it'll be a little slow for the Bills out of the gate, but I think Josh Allen and Keon Coleman, and you mentioned Palmer, will get things going a bit. I think the tight ends will have a role as well, and eventually the Bills will kind of have the ball at the end of the game. And I do expect that Matt Prater is going to kick a game-winning field goal in this game. The Bills, it will be a tie game, and the Bills will go down and get into field goal range. So it won't be a situation where the Bills defense will have to be on the field. It won't be a situation where the Bills will have to go down and get a touchdown, but the Bills will go down and kick a game-winning field goal with Matt Prater, and they'll win this game 27-24.
Man, our predictions are pretty in sync, and I will get to my prediction in a moment. But Steve Noble comes in, says Bills 31, Ravens 23. Man, I would love that. That feels pretty safe and comfortable right there. Spin 0481 comes in, says 35-26 Bills. Carl Thoman 27-24 Bills. Kyle Thompson 28-24 Bills. Lock it in. Paul says Ravens 24, Bills 20. No bones about it, says Lamar 2-1 interception ratio in Buffalo. That trend continues. Bills by at least a touchdown. And then Roy Collins comes in and says, got to do it. Ravens 26-24. Hey, listen, my confidence level is not the highest in the world going into this game. It's the first game. It's a really tough opponent. I don't think it's a great matchup for the Buffalo Bills. It will not shock me if the Bills lose. I will not be disappointed if the Buffalo Bills lose. I understand that it is a long season. There's a long way to go. Does it hurt for the whole number 1 seed, race to lose this game week 1? Sure, it does. But the games that I care about this year are going to be in January. So if we lose this game, you learn from it. You work your way into the playoffs, and then you correct it. You correct it in January so you can achieve and accomplish your ultimate goal. So as long as we don't just get flat out embarrassed tonight, and look like we can't hang with some of the AFC elites, which again, even if that happens, that doesn't necessarily, mean that's what the whole season
we got smoked by them in the regular season last year and beat them in the playoffs.
That is true. So that's true, right? So I think the lesson to be learned here is sometimes, week one means nothing in terms of long-term protection for a football team. That might be just what I was trying to get at. And it took me 45 seconds to a minute to get there. So thank you, Dave, for succinctly saying that when I couldn't. But my prediction here, I'm going to paint a picture. I'm going to paint a, you gave your prediction. I'm going to give the same prediction, but I'm going to paint a little picture for you. I'm going to go Bills 27, Ravens 24. I think it's back and forth all game. I think the Buffalo Bills get the ball last. I think there's about 20 seconds left on the clock. Bills are somewhere around their 30, 35-yard line. Josh Allen gets out of structure, hits Keon Coleman with seconds left past midfield. The Bills either call a timeout or down the ball. One of the two. But the game is going to end on a Buffalo Bills field goal by Matt Prater, 55-plus yards. He's going to knock one from distance for the Buffalo Bills. And that's going to be the storyline, right? 900-year-old Matt Prater picked up off the streets this week, blast 59-yarder for the Buffalo Bills to beat the ball. That's going to be the thing that you see on SportsCenter tonight after the game. Hopefully, manifesting.
Yeah.
I mean, if I could manifest 77-0, I would do that. But
yeah,
I don't know if
that's a tall order.
I don't know if my manifestation skills are that great. So I'm gonna stick with 27-24 Buffalo Bills. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us this morning, or if you're watching it this afternoon on demand. Always appreciate you. Do not forget, the Cover One post-game show is live following the game with Greg Tomset and Aaron Quinn. Always a much watch. Make sure you support those guys. We will be back tomorrow at 9 p.m. in our normal time slot to react to everything that happens tonight. And the last thing you can do for us, especially on this pregame show, we recorded it at 8 a.m. for a reason. We're hoping over the course of the day we can reach as many eyes and ears as possible. So share on social media. Give us a good word. Give us a shout out. We always appreciate that. That's how we want to spread this thing through word of mouth. So if you could, share it on your socials, text it to a friend, and at the very least, smash that like button for us. We always appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. And Dave, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
No, week one's always one of the most fun weeks of the season. Hopefully the Bills don't have another sort of downer week one like they've kind of had in the past couple of years. So let's go Bills.
Let's go Bills. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Paul says, glad I found your channel. Good luck. Kidding. Oh, I think that might be a Ravens fan. All right. Well, we'll end on that note. But hey, thank you, Paul. We appreciate we appreciate the good luck. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Until next time, go Bills.
Go Bills.
Thank you for watching tonight's episode of the Air Raid Hour. Make sure to hit that like button on the way out. If you are catching the show on demand, leave a reply in the comments section and we will respond over the course of the week. You can always listen to every episode next day on all major podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify, by searching Air Raid Buffalo. Thank you for your continued support, and as always, go Bills!